We welcome you in to the Go 24/7 YouTube channel, the Facebook page, the Twitter, wherever you might be watching this. And obviously, if you are, you can read the title. Five-star quarterback Bryce Underwood has flipped his commitment from LSU to Michigan. What happened? What does this mean? And where does LSU go from here? That's the topics we are going to tackle here on a breaking news episode. First off, while you're with us, make sure you like this video. Make sure you subscribe to the channel. We're going to have Glenn West joining us in just a bit, as well as he gets ready to talk to you about what's happening, what's going to continue to happen over the course of, you just be honest, over the course of the next 24 hours, over the course of the next 2 weeks, as LSU works to find an option at the quarterback position, I guess we could say. This is definitely a big news type of deal as LSU gets ready to enter into this fray of what is next. What exactly is next? We're going to talk about that and more. So like the video, subscribe to the channel, make sure you share it everywhere. This is massive news. This is absolutely massive news as you kind of look and see what has transpired. Okay, so let's start and try to find something to just work with in terms of this. I mentioned this a couple of weeks ago. When you're struggling like LSU has struggled, there is going to be an aspect and an aura of negative recruiting coming against you. You're going to have situations that when you struggle, the development isn't there, and let's just be honest, your quarterback play hasn't been great. It's been average to below average this season. You're going to have negative recruiting against you. And so for all the people that wanted to sit there and say, well, look at what's happening to Michigan. They don't have a quarterback. They don't have a quarterback. They can't develop a quarterback. Yeah, they had J.J. McCarthy, but they don't have one right now. LSU has slidden enough on the field, and we talked about this myself and Sonny Ship earlier today. He's slid enough on the field for you to be able to, if you're Michigan, turn around and say, hey, that development aspect you thought you were going to get, what if it was just Jaden Daniels was a great quarterback? Well, what if it was just he was that talented? What if they're not as great at developing quarterbacks as you thought that they would be? And I think that that's a real life scenario that we could be talking about here as Underwood, as Underwood has made this decision public. The second aspect of this is also the NIL factor. And I'm just going to say this, and people can agree, they can agree to disagree, however you want to look at it. We all saw publicly over the past month or so kind of exactly what has been happening with the Bryce Underwood recruitment. Underwood repeatedly saying over and over again, hey, he's good to go. He's all right with the Tigers. Everything's good in that aspect of what's going on with LSU. And I had some people ask me who, on the Michigan side of things, maybe they're college football fans, and they sat here and said, but what if they offer a number that you just can't refuse? What if they go after a figure that just makes too much sense that you kind of have to take it? And I'll be honest with you, I don't know what the exact figure, but what I do believe happened here is that Michigan turned around. They went one last ditch effort 2 weeks before signing day. And they sat here, they ponied up some serious cash and some serious money, and they got the deal done. And when your back's against the wall, if you're a program like Michigan, you don't want to slip back down into the middle tier of the Big Ten. And you have donor support. And you also have the results of what happened last year when you do pour money into your program, which is what they did last year to be able to win a national title. When you have those aspects about yourself, it creates data points for you to go off of. And so if Underwood reportedly did turn down the 10 million or so, however you want to get to it or want to look at it, if that was true, if they really did turn down that monetary, that money aspect here, Michigan went back to the drawing board. Michigan went back to the drawing board. They went back to hunkered down in HQ And they sat there and said, okay, we got to make this kid an offer we can't refuse. Kid's 45 minutes from Ann Arbor. Everything, he knows everything there is to know about this program. He knows everything there is to know about what you have to do in order to win there. He saw it last year. He's been to camps there. He has worked out multiple times for the coaching staff there. It isn't a program he is not, in my opinion, familiar with. But this is what it comes down to. And this is where we are in college football. And I'm not going to sit here and complain about where we are in college football because this is just straight money. Michigan just straight up bought Bryce Underwood from LSU. That's what happened here. Relationships, yes, they do matter. Relationships matter in recruiting. In my opinion, you can't just take totally those things outside of it. You have to bring it all in together and really all that. But Michigan straight up went back to the drawing board. They went back to HQ and they sat there and said, what's it going to take for us to go and make that kid where he can't say no? And I don't know what the exact figure is. I mean, this news is literally breaking as we talk. This is a surprise from what we're hearing on different things. But this is something where it's, Michigan ponied up the money, and this is the sport that you live in right now. And you have to, in my opinion, you have to play the game or you're going to get left behind. And this should be the flare that shoots up in the sky when you talk about Michigan or when you talk about college football in LSU specifically of if you don't play the game, you're going to get left behind. This is the warning shot. Now, where do I believe? I believe that there's more to come. There's more to come if there's LSU. We all can circle Derek Meadows as a guy who a lot of people felt was closely tied with Bryce Underwood's commitment to LSU. That could be an option of the next one that falls off the board here. But now LSU has to recalibrate everything. Now you have to have a conversation. Does Garrett Nussmeier come back next season? Does Garrett Nussmeier leave? And now you're left with a room that has a guy who has some SEC experience, but nobody else who has actual playing time. Do you try to go find a quarterback in the 2025 class? It's very late for that. And honestly, because you were tied to Bryce Underwood since January, since you were doing that, now you really haven't invested a lot of money, resources, time, and effort spent into other 2025 prospects. So I don't know necessarily how you go about what you want to do there. Now, what happens next if you're LSU? Then the first domino that has to fall is if Garrett Nussmeier is coming back or not. That has to be the first domino to fall here. I mean, it has to be. This is nuts. This is absolutely crazy. It has to be, in my opinion, something that you have to kind of sit there and you've got to be able to say, okay, where do you go from here? What do you do? Do you go get a transfer quarterback? Do you get Nussmeier to come back for another season and try to develop like Burrow did, like Daniels did, and maybe that second year as a starter is the magic year? I don't know where you go from here. Like I said, I don't know how many relationships you truly have in terms of where you can go and what you can do. I don't think that you have enough relationships or time and effort spent in the 2025 class to go pick up a high school kid or flip somebody, unless you're going to throw a bag at somebody. So you're in quite a conundrum if you're LSU and you're in that offensive building, you're in that football ops building right now, because there's a lot of unheard of things of what you could do, maybe how you could do it. And it opens the door for Garrett Nussmeier to come back and obviously be the de facto guy next season. Hopefully he develops. So, to me, in my opinion, this is a massive loss. This is an absolute. I mean, you got to tip the hat to Michigan. I mean, they just ponied up. I don't know what else there really is to say. You have to tip your hat to Michigan. It's something where, you're seeing the reactions come in right in, and I'll read some of these off. Kenny Darby, 2026 receiver, just tweets, facepalm to the face. Zion Williams, the defensive lineman, he just tweets out, what I said yesterday still stands. I ain't commit for him. And then he tags us over at Go 24/7. So is there going to be is there going to be classes or parts of this class that go away? Yeah, there will be, and you got to figure out a way to hold that together over the next 2 weeks. This is a massive telling sign of where you go from here. How do you work this thing out? LSU has to figure out what they're going to do about the quarterback position. But overall, this shows you this is the sport we live in. This is the day and age of the sport that we live in now. You can sit and complain about it and get left behind, or you can join the fray and let's go spending free agency. I think that's the biggest takeaway for me. It's free agency. It's whoever goes the highest bidder. Conversations and loyalties, obviously, I don't know how much they matter. I think in certain situations they do matter, but each individual kid is its own data point. You can't group all of them together and say, hey, for the majority of the fact, I think relationships do matter. This might be an outlier situation, but hats off to Michigan, because I genuinely don't know what else you would have done in this situation. Absolutely crazy. It's a nuts thing to see with what LSU has poured in. This has been a commitment that happened in January. I remember I was in San Antonio at the All-American Bowl when the commitment popped. We had a good idea it was happening. Joe Sloan's relationship with Bryce Underwood was very tight. And that's something else to consider here, because a lot of conversation from the fans was, we don't want Joe Sloan as the offensive coordinator anymore. That was a lot of the conversations. So, and a lot of the people on the other side of the argument said, hey, you got to keep him here so we can get Underwood in the fray. Well, now Underwood's not in the fray. What does that mean for Joe Sloan and his future? That's a whole different podcast for a whole nother day. But this is some seriously interesting stuff. It's going to be very interesting to monitor. And we're going to have all the information and more over at Go 24/7. But obviously the big breaking news, LSU loses Bryce Underwood in a flip over to Michigan. The Belleville, Michigan native is going to stay home. He's going to play for the Wolverines just 2 weeks before signing day. This is excruciating. This is painful, but it's the day and age of college football that we live in. So you better buckle up. You better get ready. You better get your pocketbooks open. And LSU better not whiff again in the portal this offseason, or you're going to start to see this team slide back towards the middle tier of the SEC and below. It's happened to other programs. You better be willing to play the game, because it's the day and age that we live in here in college football. This is the Go 24/7 Instant Reaction Podcast. We appreciate you so much for tuning in. Absolutely crazy stuff here. Absolutely, just nuts in terms of college football. What a bombshell to be dropped on a November 21st on Thursday. Crazy. Absolutely crazy. Just nut stuff. We appreciate all 2,000 plus people watching this live right now. My name is Bryce Koon. Make sure you follow us on social media. You get all the information you need over here at Go 24/7. But like I said, this is crazy. It's college ball we live in nowadays. LSU's got to figure out where they're going to go from here. It's going to be very interesting to see what happens, because the Tigers have a big hole at quarterback they've got to figure out. Now, you got Colin Hurley. Do you decide to develop him? You've obviously got a couple other guys as well. That's going to be very interesting to see how this rolls. But this is tough. This is tough. I think we're going to bring in real quick, and let's get him in here. We're going to bring in our senior writer, Glenn West. And let's get this in here real quick, because this is going to be some big news right here that I want to get his reaction in on too, because this is nuts. Just texted him that we just sent it, but we're going to get to some of the comments here that we're going to go to here, because it is absolutely crazy. Chase says, why blame Kelly for this one? Michigan is obviously that desperate, and Underwood obviously that greedy. If you got to pay a teen a whole bank, it ain't worth it. He's good, no lie, but he ain't Bryce Young coming out of high school. We don't know. Gary says you can't turn down $10.5 million. LSU Beer says, yeah, Doug, Sloan at a minimum is gone. Losing Bryce Underwood brings BK heat to a simmer. Well, see, I don't know. It's not about Kelly, Ricky Tucker says. It's about the over $10 million in NIL. Buck says Buck Bryce was never coming to LSU and never turned down $10.5 million. Dylan Moses pulled the same there on LSU as well. All right, we're bringing in Glenn West. We're live here, Glenn. We got over 2,000 people watching live. Massive, massive news. Glenn, I've said about everything, so I want to get your thoughts on this situation. This is obviously a massive loss. It seems to caught a lot of people by surprise. I think all of us included. You were in the football ops building just moments before this thing popped. What's your reaction, and where does LSU go from here?
Yeah, look, I mean, literally was walking out of the LSU football ops facility today when I turned on my phone, and it just blew up with this Bryce Underwood stuff. The first one I saw was Adam Schefter, and
You
I
know
mean,
it's big news when
you know
Schefter's
Adam
on it.
Schefter is breaking recruiting news in high school. You know it's massive stuff, and so look, this is just an incredible blow for LSU in terms of the future of their program. What's kind of coming, down the pike next. We'll be talking with a bunch of people here over the next 24 hours. But look, I think there was a lot of confidence from us, from certainly a lot of the local media here, a lot of the industry sources, and from Bryce Underwood himself. Like, this was the guy for over 300 days said and did all of the right things. And I think the one thing that we just talked about that could sway him was the big pile of money. And I know that, Bryce has probably already talked about that a little bit. I should say our Bryce, not Bryce Underwood.
Yeah, no one get mad at me. It's not me.
Yeah, it's incredible how quick this turned. As of a week ago, I know LSU felt very confident. But you got to go this thing day at a time, and it's turned on its head very, very quickly here. And now, if you're LSU, you've got to do some damage control, because I mean, this is the kind of guy you build classes around. This is the kind of guy that recruits want to come to your school to play with. And now that he's going to be a part of Michigan, it looks like you've got to go. You've got to go do some damage control here and try to hold on to as many of these guys as possible. We can speculate, all we can on what this could mean for other players in the class, but here with 2 weeks left, you're not left with a whole ton of options between now and signing day. So it'll be very interesting what LSU does. I'm curious, what kind of did you talk about in terms of what could be next, or did you even touch on that yet?
Yeah, no, I kind of went through my full spiel here and then wanted to get your thoughts, because here's why I sit, Glenn, and I kind of said this earlier. And if you're just now tuning, we got people tuning in, kind of just clicking on the link. We appreciate it. Make sure you hit the like button, subscribe, and head over to Go 24/7 for all the latest information, including this one. Glenn, here's where I sit with this is that, and it's funny, if you're a Barstool Sports guy, Dave Portnoy just tweeted a video of him saying, "Welcome to Ann Arbor." And the rumors, we need to call it how it is, because we can talk about this, publicly now. Michigan most likely came back with an offer that he couldn't refuse. And I don't blame the kid for taking it. Like, if a school's going to throw that type of money,
absolutely not.
I can't blame you for taking it.
Life-changing money for a young player, where
regardless if he has an NFL career or not.
Yeah,
it's
where you
life-changing
think
money.
he could be a generational talent, and be a top 5 whatever pick in whatever the draft in the next couple of years. But it's hard to turn down that kind of money when you're talking about it. But I do know LSU had high 7-figure offers out there for him, and we'll see.
Yeah.
I mean, look, you got 2 weeks. I don't know if they completely cut off communication here over the last 2 weeks. Maybe you can wrangle together some more money, and if you want to go down that road and make another final push for him. But I have a feeling that if Underwood was going to make this decision, they probably gave LSU the heads up and said, "Hey, this is what Michigan's offering. Can you match it? Can you come close?" And I'm probably pretty sure that LSU said, "Look, we just can't get that far," and that's the decision the Underwood family makes. And look, you can't blame him. You can't blame the family. You blame kind of the system and what this is right now. And right now, these are no rules. There are no rules. You got revenue sharing coming in July. It can't come soon enough, as far as I'm sure LSU and a lot of these college programs are concerned. But this is kind of what the wild, wild west of recruiting right now kind of gets you.
Yeah, I want to do this right here because there's so many comments flooding in, Glenn, that I can't even answer all of them. Chad with a great one, though. He goes, "Sign me up for quarterback. I'll take $1 million. I'm a 1-star." We might have to hit you up, Chad. We might have to hit you up. Yeah. Glenn, I wanted to throw this back to you because we're talking about what's next. Obviously, there's a lot of different ways you can go with this, but it seems like the most likely thing is that could Garrett Nussmeier, we will talk so much more about this in the next coming days and weeks now. You know what? So much for a drabby last 2 weeks of the college football season. We got plenty to talk about. Garrett Nussmeier, that's got to be the priority number one, to get him to come back, and hopefully you see that year 2 leap that you've seen out of Daniels and Burrow. I'm not trying to compare them, but I'm saying, like, there's a track record. Maybe you can find that. it also speaks to this too. And I didn't want to go as far to say that these guys would leave, but I think this also opens the door for guys like Ricky Collins and Colin Hurley to say, okay, you know what? That big fish is not coming in here. Let's go compete, whether it's 2025, 2026. But Glenn, like you mentioned earlier, this isn't on LSU's staff in terms of they should have done a better job when I talk about this. It's more of just the nature of the beast. Underwood's been committed since January.
And
When you have a guy like that committed,
he said and done all the right things too.
Yeah. When you have a guy committed like that, you're not actively looking at other 2025 quarterbacks. And you're so late in the process now to where unless you've got a bag somewhere, that you're going to pull out, which you probably would have pulled out for him, I don't know where you're going to go. So could you look in the portal if Nussmeier for some reason does decide to leave? Maybe so. But I think also you have to turn your attention to 2026 and then that loaded 2027 class that you cannot, in my opinion, I know it's early, you cannot let Elijah Haven leave the city limits with what you've got now.
I think the silver lining here, if there is one, and there's not much of one that I think, at least for LSU fans, you can find in this, maybe you can allocate some of those resources now that you were going to spend on Underwood into other players, other talent, other position rooms where you can make aggressive offers, whether it's via the portal, maybe you up the ante on a couple of prospects that you're hoping to flip here late. There's still some ways here that I think LSU can at least. You're never going to lessen a blow like this because this is a massive blow, and you can certainly see some of the effects continue to ripple out here over the next couple of weeks before signing day. But you can go to a transfer portal player that you have great interest in and maybe offer him a little bit more than maybe you could have beforehand. I mean, there are ways here that I think LSU's roster, at least in the immediate term, can benefit from this. But when you're looking long term and when you're looking at what the program could have been with this guy as your quarterback for the next 3 years, or on campus for however long he would have been on campus for, it's hard to kind of overcome those kinds of decisions and kind of blows. So be very interested to see kind of what comes of this. I mean, like we said, we're reacting to this on the fly.
Yeah,
we always. I mean, we had. I think. It shouldn't.
It's in the back of the mind. Maybe.
I think it was always kind of a back of the mind thing. Like, okay, well, at some point, this just does become about money for him. And, and again, cannot blame the player, cannot blame the family for wanting to take this kind of deal, whatever it was. I'm sure. Who knows? I mean, it might even be more than what has been reported. I mean, it really could have been, them just continuing to up this ante until Underwood just said yes. So be very curious to see kind of what happens here over the next couple of weeks. But no doubt a tremendous blow for LSU's class, for its future. And like I said, I think these LSU coaching staffs are going to have a lot of long nights here in terms of calling recruits and trying to keep everybody on board, everybody that's out there that's left, to kind of keep this class together. Because it's the kind of guy that you build classes around, like I just said. So
it's going to be very, very weird vibe inside Tiger Stadium on Saturday. I'm just going to tell you that right now. It is going to be one of the weirdest vibes in terms of that. Going to be interesting. Glenn, I want to get us out of here because we've been talking a lot. I do appreciate you fighting through the Baton Rouge traffic and hopping on with us, because this is breaking news. Nearly 3,000 people watching live. And to all of those people, subscribe over to the Go 24/7. We're about to release an awesome deal for you in honor of Black Friday through the holidays. And now more than ever, you're going to want the latest intel going on recruiting. So Sonny Ship, myself, and Glenn West, come join that crew, and we'll talk some LSU football. You can complain. You can scream at the clouds. You can do whatever you need to do, because this is definitely something that is quite interesting as LSU tries to navigate the next 2 weeks. A lot to talk about. We mentioned it kind of in earlier. Do they keep this class intact? Who goes? Who stays? And Brian Kelly was asked the question on Monday: are you calling the commits? Well, you better pick up the phone now and call them, because this is the kind of thing that you don't want to result in a snowball effect. So he is Glenn West. My name is Bryce Koon. We appreciate you so much for tuning in here on the Go 24/7 live reaction podcast. As Bryce,
we're not going to talk about LSU Vanderbilt. We're not going to talk about the game on Saturday.
What are you excited to say? I don't even know.
No,
I don't know what
let's
we're gonna do.
let's
It's
let's let's
we just
move on. We'll move
it'll
on.
move on, and we'll talk more later about something else. Go
Yeah.
24/7 podcast. Thanks so much for tuning in. We will catch you next time.